soundscape. The calm and sort of insightful vocals actually fit pretty well on here, in contrast to the heavier songs on the album where they sort of stick out like a sore thumb. And Captagon, which goes back to the post-hardcore sound, but musically, there's a lot more cohesion. It also has this really awesome sort of mathcore-esque breakdown in the middle, followed by this really awesome climax with ascending guitars and lyrics that really seem to paint a statement. Dissolving and Reject All and Submit both continue the album's theme of being awkward and sort of missing the mark, unfortunately. The vocals from Dylan Walker from Full of Heck was a nice surprise, but ultimately they didn't do much to help the track. December 4th, 2024 is slightly better. The instrumental composition here is really underappreciated, with the crushing, slow, post-hardcore riffs that I really love. It's really one of my favorite tracks on this. Audrey's of Guilt is one of the better tracks as well on this album. I love the wall of sound the guitars make. And halfway through the song, I can say the same mostly for the closing track, For Those Who Will Outlive Us. It starts with this really quiet melody on keyboards which develops into this really nice soundscape. Halfway through, it switches up and goes in a more ominous direction that seems to build towards a dramatic finish, but really it doesn't lead to a very satisfying climax. So that concludes my track-by-track review of this album. As far as my thoughts as a whole, I didn't hate it like a lot of people did that I've gathered based on the online discord surrounding the album. I liked how imaginative it was. And I really liked that the band was going into this bold new direction into post-hardcore, going away from their early Midwest emo years. That and a lot of the instrumentals were really engaging with some unpredictable chord progressions and song melodies. But my complaints with this album really lie in the band's execution. There's not a ton of cohesion here, I feel. And the band seems to try and do too much experimentation with their sound on this record. While that's not a bad thing, you gotta make it sound somewhat coherent. I believe this record isn't all too great at that. My favorite tracks for this, my favorite track is the closing track, For Those Who Outlive Us. And overall, it's not a total stinker, but it could have been better. I give it a 60 out of 100. No Alternative will be back right after this break.
When you look at the number of disasters in the U.S., chances are every area will deal with some kind of emergency in the next decade. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
I had to eat a raw egg on Chris's dormitory floor.
I currently don't have any federal pending charges.
You know what you never did? You never walked to Walmart, Chris. That's my co-host. This is for making me eat roast Pop-Tarts. It's showtime, Chris. Come on.
I want to be on the air for that. I got a couple things to say.
No. Spin the wheel. But you got censorship.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to...
Welcome back, music lovers and television watchers alike, to No Alternative, the alternative music show, broadcasting out of Oswego. We have reached Block D, D for Deftones. That's right, I'm about to review the brand new Deftones album, Private Music, which is already one of my top 3 albums of the year. So, to start off, let me give you some background on the Deftones for those of you who have to be living under a rock and don't know who they are. They are an alternative metal band hailing from Sacramento, California, and they are currently featuring guitarist Stephen Carpenter, drummer Ave Cunningham, keyboardist Frank Delgado, and the larger-than-life vocalist Chino Moreno. And for this album, they are also joined by their current touring bassist, Fred Sablon. So I'll now give you a very brief rundown on the band's history. Formed all the way back in the late 80s, they signed with Maverick Records, where they gained a critical and commercial following through the release of their first 2 albums, Adrenaline and Around the Fur. In 2000, they released White Pony, which was met with widespread critical acclaim for its genre-bending sound that set it apart from other new metal bands at the time. Following releases, such as their self-titled album and Saturday Night Wrist, saw them further delving into this new shoegazy sound they created. In 2010 and 2012, following the tragic injury and eventual passing of original bassist Chi Cheng, rest in peace, the band dropped Diamond Eyes and Koi no Yoken, respectively. I personally consider this era to be the peak of the Deftones' sort of dreamy, shoegazy sound. 2016's Gore and 2020's Ohms saw the band go in a different direction, a more spacey, sonic direction that was still popular among devoted fans, but it certainly divided critics. Getting into the track-by-track review, we start with My Mind is a Mountain, a thunderous opener that automatically inserts Deftones' spot on the throne of alternative metal. The riffs are loud, but not overly aggressive, and Chino Moreno's dynamic vocals ranging from cleans to screams also stand out on here. I also got to give credit to Delgado's synths, which on this track and the record as a whole add an important layer of sonic depth that gives it this magical, mountainous quality. Locked Club sounds very interesting. It doubles down on the heavy riffs with some very bold spoken word lyrics from Chino, but overall, it's not my favorite. The next track, Edyssis, originally didn't land with me, but upon recent listens, I've grown to appreciate it. It's got these really awesome, heavy sort of Stephen Carpenter riffs, but also a really beautiful soundscape from Delgado's synths. Up next is Infinite Source, and if Deftones were to have dropped a 3rd single from this album, then this would be the one. It's less heavy and has more of this dream pop sort of sound, peaking with this infectious chorus with introspective lyrics. Souvenir is not my favorite off the album, but it's still a very enjoyable track. Clocking in at over 6 minutes long, it's the longest track on the album and one of the longer songs in Deftones' discography, largely in part due to the needlessly long ambient outro. Oh man, this sort of made the song feel a little bit tedious and kind of a bore. CXZ snaps the record out of that ambient daze, though, with these really aggressive riffs and the dreamy synth soundscape that we're used to seeing. I think About You All the Time is a beautiful example of the quiet, soft dynamic that Deftones employs a lot. It starts slow, but then it explodes into these thick guitar layers. But the lyrics here are easily the standout. They're very positive, and I'd say even very uplifting. Like someone with their share of demons finally realizing they found inner peace. All right, Milk of the Madonna. Wow, what an amazing track. This is the second of the 2 singles from the album. It's heavy, fast, aggressive, yet it's still so incredibly ethereal. Chino's lyrics on the song also are really fantastical, and they go with the music to paint this really apocalyptic scenery. The music really reminds me of Swerve City from Koi no Yoken, with its upbeat tempo and roaring guitars, but still during that bridge, it has that guitar solo. That's what that track reminds me of. But this track is far better than even that song. I'd say it's one of my top 10 favorite Deftones songs. Cut Hands incorporates the sort of spoken word / rapping delivery from Deftones' early albums. I don't think it really lands with me for this song, to be honest. But on the other hand, Metal Dream is a really beautiful track that opens with basically the same thing, just rhythm and spoken word, before it blasts into a beautiful chorus with this really nice wall of sound. The lyrics here are really romantic and ethereal. I know some people are not as big on this one, but I gotta give it credit because everything here flows very smoothly. Departing the Body has sort of an ambient sort of intro that leads into a quiet guitar melody. With how low Chino's voice is in this opening lyrics, you think you'd be listening to the baritones. Get it? Because baritones and Deftones. But jokes aside, this song is amazing. The chord progressions are simple and beautiful, and the lyrics are still fictitiously powerful as you'd expect. The loud-soft dynamic is also really effectively done here, much like a lot of the other tracks. Talking about the record as a whole, I think it's the best thing Deftones has put out since Koi no Yoken. It's musically diverse, but still concise for the most part. For a band that has more or less had the same sound for the past 25 years, it's really amazing how they still manage to put out fresh-sounding material. I mean, there are some songs on here that are worse than others, but none of them seem out of place on this record. Chino's lyrical prowess really shows on here as well. The lyrics, which largely deal with mental health struggles, are very abstract in a poetic sort of way that I really relate to. Instead of literally saying what's on his mind, his lyrics allow you to truly feel what... I'll give it an 85 out of 100. No Alternative will be back right after this. Welcome back, music lovers, to No Alternative, Oswego's alternative music show. I am your host, DJ Dash, and unfortunately, I have to announce that this is the last segment of tonight's episode. This segment I call DJ Dash's Music Diary, where I'll be doing a segment this segment I'll be doing at the end of every episode, where I'll be presenting you with all of my current most listened to songs that aren't on any of the albums I reviewed on a current episode. Alright, so the first song I have is Forest by System of a Down. For those of you who are in the alternative and metal communities as a whole, this band really needs no introduction. They're really among the best in both genres. Their fantastic 2001 album Toxicity recently celebrated its anniversary, and Forest is the 8th track off of this album. And it's a blistering track with soaring vocals from Serj Tankian and the lyrics, which are becoming ever more relevant in today's climate. Next up, I've got a track called My Heroine by the band Silverstein. Hailing from Burlington, Ontario, just a few hours away from here, Silverstein was one of the leading bands in the mall emo movement of the 2000s. Their most popular track, My Heroine, shines with arguably more raw emotion than most other bands of this era can muster. This track and the album, Discovering the Waterfront, is really phenomenal and could potentially be a candidate for a classic album review later down the line. Well, that is it for this episode of No Alternative. I am your host, DJ Dash. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a nice night. Welcome to No Alternative, Oswego's super goated music review show. I'm the delightful DJ Dash,
And I'm the heavenly invisible hand.
and we have an awesome show planned for you tonight. We'll start tonight off, as always, by rapid-firing some new albums under the realm of alternative music for you. Fans of alternative rock are in for a real treat with Soulblind's new album, Red Sky Morning. The Hudson Valley Quartet builds on their awesome, fuzzy shoegaze sound right where they left off with their debut album and early releases. Punk band Military Gun dropped their new album, God Save the Gun, this Friday. For those of you who are looking for a fun and punchy new rock album, I'm sure this is your cut. Self-proclaimed dance-infused math rock band God Alone returns to the spotlight with The Beep Test. This genre-bending band delivers poetic lyricism coupled with vibrant instrumentation on their sophomore studio album.
Speaking of post-punk, we had an under-the-radar gem last week, that being Station on the Hill by Computer. With an aggressive edge and knack for experimentalism, I'm sure this band will make it big in the world of post-punk.
Now that we've got the sophomore albums out of the way, now it's time for a debut album. Australian post-punk band Dust released their studio album last Friday, presenting creative post-punk jams with noticeable influences from the London's windmill post-punk scene. Moving on to the metal stuff, progressive metalcore act Greyhaven is back with Keep It Quiet, an energetic release with plenty of heavy emotion in store for listeners. And perhaps the biggest metal album of all, technical thrash band Coroner's return after 30 years with Dissonance Theory. This album picks up where the band left off 30 years ago with complex rhythms and intriguing riffs. Could this potentially be an Album of the Year contender? Well, that's for you to decide. One more release in store for today is the highly anticipated fifth album from Australian psychedelic one-man show, Tame Impala. Kevin Parker delves more into electronic and dance music here on this new album, with many of the lyrical themes dealing with familiar topics including internal struggle and change. That includes our lightning round of new albums. I'm sure there's at least something out there for you to enjoy. After the break, we'll return with our first album review of the night, after these messages.
Of disasters in the U.S., chances are every area will deal with some kind of emergency in the next decade. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
I had to eat a raw egg on Chris's dormitory floor.
I currently don't have any federal pending charges.
You know what you never did? You never walked to Walmart, Chris. That's my co-host. This is for making me eat roast Pop-Tarts. It's showtime, Chris. Come on.
I want to be on the air for that. I got a couple things to say.
No. Spin the wheel. Oh, you got censorship.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to
What's up, smell-o-vision watchers and an active TV magic? This microphone doesn't work because it's not plugged in. I don't know, whatever. Welcome back to No Alternative.
It's time we review a new album that came out earlier this year that many music fans have been raving about as a potential album of the year. that being Lonely People with Power by Deaf Heaven. I'll start off, as always, with some background on the band Deaf Heaven. They were a band. They're a very awesome, very awesome band.
I promise we're not riffing right
Please,
now.
please.
Deaf Heaven is a pretty awesome band. I think they're pretty awesome. They originally formed in 2010 as a black metal duo, but eventually solidified into a quintet and have since evolved into one of the most important metal acts of the past decade and a half.
Thank you, Nate. Their 2013 album, Sunbather, practically invented the black gaze subgenre, which combined the crushing aggressiveness of black metal with the sort of fuzziness of shoegaze. Sunbather divided metalheads and critics upon its release, but the band asserted itself fully as a mainstay of metal with 2015's New Bermuda and 2018's Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, which saw a massive improvement in the band's songwriting. Following another polarizing release with 2021's Infinite Granite, which saw the band go in a softer dream pop direction, the band returned in full force earlier this year and dropped Lonely People with Power. Does it live up to all the raving? Let's find out. We'll start off with some of the singles on this album. Magnolia was the lead single. It's harsh, its tempo is blistering, and it's one of the shortest songs in Deaf Heaven's catalog, getting its point across at just around 4 minutes. Can you believe that? Measuring a band's songs for how short they are? It's usually the other way around. But anyways, it's a fantastic single. Heathen was the other single off of that album, featuring a quieter, dreamy section with clean vocals from George Clark. This heavily contrasts with the more aggressive black metal instrumentation that the band implements throughout the rest of the song. George Clark's shrill, screaming vocals have also improved considerably since the days of Sunbather and New Bermuda. On Heathen and other tracks off this album, his screaming vocals are much clearer to understand, as well as more poignant. Heathen is also short by Deaf Heaven standards, only around 5 minutes long, meaning that, like Magnolia, it's much easier to digest for new fans of the band, but you're also not really missing out on the Deaf Heaven magic. To sum it up, Heathen is one of my favorites on here. Aside from the singles, there is a long list of other highlights on the album. Amethyst is the soaring epic whose scale is on par with some of Deaf Heaven's classic tracks. The guitars on this track are just simply phenomenal, and the spoken word vocals at the beginning helped with painting that poetic beauty. There are also interludes on the album titled Incidentals, which provide that sort of grandiose concept album cohesion for the tracks, and like I said, gives the album a sense of symphonic grandeur. Doberman is a good example of this, with the transition from Incidental 1 and then the track itself, which is a thunderous and electrifying exposition into the album's themes. Revelator is another cut off of this that I really love. It's probably like the heaviest song off of this album, with ferocious riffs and blast beats that scream black metal in all caps. This track doesn't play around. The soul-crushing riffs stop in their tracks for a quiet, suspenseful interlude about halfway through the song before snapping straight back into it for its blistering conclusion. I'm going to be honest, I was straight up jump scared by the return of the music in that song. Like I actually flinched. Anyways, Winona is another long one that features really dense guitar layering and dreamy passageways between aggressive blasts within its complex song structure. The lyrics here are also incredibly raw and powerful, dealing with themes of inner disruption and self-image. The lyrics throughout this album, as a matter of fact, are really powerful on pretty much all of the tracks. They heavily revolve around themes of detachment and imbalance of power, as the title suggests, and also the internal struggles that seem to take place as a part of that. If there was any song off this album that I did come close to disliking, it would probably be The Marvelous Orange Tree. It starts off pretty promising as an album closer, but it ends up being pretty anticlimactic and simply just not as impactful as the other tracks off this album. In my opinion, Winona should have been the real climax, as it's much more overwhelmingly emotional. So talking about the album as a whole, this album honestly deserves the Metal Album of the Year praise it's been getting. It takes everything great about Deaf Heaven's sound and just pushes it to the max. And all the issues that I and others have had with Deaf Heaven in the past are practically non-existent here. The production is significantly improved, the soundscapes the album's employs are still engaging, and the emotional power of the lyrics is unparalleled for the band, save maybe for Sunbather. My favorite tracks off of here are Doberman, Heathen, and Amethyst, and I will be giving this album an 85 out of 100.
Coming up after the break, we'll be having me, myself, The Invisible Hand, talk about the brand new album by Rocket. The album is called R is for Rocket. Right after these brief messages, we'll be right back on No Alternative.
Say, President Stanley, whenever there's bad weather, who would you turn to?
I'd turn to Storm Team 10.
No, but you've got to say it like this. Storm Team 10. Say it with me. Storm Team 10.
If you like action, romance,
sister, if you're watching this,
and highbrow humor,
surface is this.
Floor. Minch did not legitimately put his head in the toilet.
There's only one place to turn. No! Tune in to new episodes of
Oh boy!
only on WTOP.
Welcome back to No Alternative, a super awesome music review show. This segment, I'll be reviewing the new album by Rocket. R is for Rocket. So essentially, Rocket's been on my radar for a while now, since about 2024. They're a LA-based rock collective, and they released one of the most impressive debut EPs in 2023. That EP was called Versions of You. It was on repeat for me a while when I discovered the band, as it captured the lead singer Alethea Tuttle's capabilities as a vocalist, and it also reinvented how I thought of a love song and how it could possibly sound. So Rocket's sound was more so, say, indie rock and slacker in nature before really reinventing their sound to be more alternative rock for R is for Rocket. Maybe this is them touring with the Smashing Pumpkins earlier in 2025, or the notoriety that they landed after getting an interview with the Rolling Stones. So upon release, I found that R is for Rocket really wants the listener to know that the band is leaning in the alternative rock direction. Songs like Take Your Aim and Wide Awake really dial things to 11 with this noise. And the shift of direction is welcome, and I kind of like it, but it feels like the vocal mix from Tuttle gets really buried down in the song. But I would just say that all the songs sound great on their own, but when you listen to them back to back like a normal record, I guess listening party, or how you listen to a record, it just doesn't work out that well. I found myself enjoying the singles off the album more than I did listening to the album as a whole, because I feel like I'm the opposite when it comes to how I listen to music. Some of the standout tracks to me were Number One Fan and 1 Million.
Awesome. Yes, I was hoping you'd say that. Number One Fan is a brilliant song. It's mellow and introspective, and its lyrics hit a little too close to home.
Yeah, Number One Fan almost feels like it could have been written by a bedroom pop artist, but the way that Rocket performs the song makes me wish I never had that thought. Number One Fan is about falling out with someone, getting back in touch with them after spending time away from one another. It's like this epic ballad, but the song is only like 3 minutes long, so it's like, how does it feel that way? But the slow drum performance and bright sounding piano and droning guitars really make the song great, while Tuttle's vocals are really just the cherry on top. I highly recommend the song if you're thinking about getting back together with your ex-partner after breaking no contact.
To interject briefly, I've listened to some of the tracks off of this album, and I really enjoyed what I heard. As I mentioned with earlier, is it 1 Million?
I think so. Yeah.
1 Million, I really liked that song. But Rocket has sort of this warm, uplifting indie rock vibe that I get from bands such as, say, Always or Crushed. I think Crushed I've talked about on here before. 1 Million perfectly exemplifies this sort of this warm, nostalgic sound paired with relatable lyrical themes. 1 Million specifically mentions a feeling of love that I've found myself in many times before.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money with that. 1 Million, in contrast, is about like wanting to be noticed. It feels like playing the long game in musical form. The song is definitely for people who are picked last for teams in gym class. The song is also for people who imagine futures in their head with other people who don't even have the courage to speak to them in the first place. It's not quite a song about yearning, but more so the thought that I'll always be there for you, waiting to be noticed. The guitars on the song are really great. They come out swinging on the track, and it just really ties it all together. Total, as always, has a phenomenal performance, and her vocals aren't buried in the song at all. Just on a limb here, I'm going to go out and give this album a 75 out of 100. There's some really great songs on Ours for Rocket, but compared to previous work, it sounds a bit muddy. I'm not against the direction that the band is taking, and I think this is a pretty solid first outing for a band somewhat new to the scene. I think I'd rather highly recommend listening to their EP versions of You before diving into Ours for Rocket, but all around, it's a refreshing take on rock. Rocket just didn't quite stick the landing on this record.
Yeah, I'd say I gotta say I do agree with that, Nate. So we are now going into another break, but coming up after the break, you may find yourself watching a review of a classic Talking Heads album right after these messages.
Get rid of all the questions. Error. Yeah, just where all that stuff is. Yeah, we went through 6, 5, error. 3, 2, 1.
If only we had someone who could tell us what we should and shouldn't watch.
Well, do we have a show for you?
Who are you?
What are you doing in my bed?
On Be Kind and Rewind, we will go through and review all your favorite movie franchises.
And tell you which ones you should and shouldn't watch from the perspective of normal movie fans. Well, be sure to check out Be Kind and Rewind on WTOP-10.
You know, I never really knew how sports worked, but I guess that's why we're talking about music. So, what's up, music lovers? Welcome back to No Alternative, Oswego's alternative music show or whatever.
This segment, we're going to be taking a look at a legendary classic album by new wave band The Talking Heads, and that album is Speaking in Tongues. Me and Nate are super excited to talk about this album together, so let's get into it. So some background on the band first, for those of you who are living under a rock. Talking Heads were a legendary British art rock band that was active in the late 1970s and early 1980s, releasing an impressive string of masterpiece albums such as 77, More Songs About Buildings and Food, and Remain in Light, to name a few. These albums were renowned for their unique rhythmic mayhem, engaging song structures, and lyrics that'll keep any listener on the edge of their seat. 1980's Remain in Light is their most critically and commercially successful record, widely considered to be one of the defining albums of the 80s new wave scene. But, my friends, that is an album for another day. Today we are going to be talking about the album that came after it, Speaking in Tongues, released in 1983. Is it a classic Talking Heads album? Well, we both know the answer to that, but we're going to have all of you watch and find out.
So, with any critical acclaim for a previous album, it feels like the following album is always a mixed bag among fans and critics. That's generally how I feel about Speaking in Tongues compared to the band's other musical outings. Speaking in Tongues has a great musical range with many classics on the album, but it feels somewhat shallow compared to their previous work. A lot of fans, myself included, theorize the cleaner sound and mainstream acceptance of the Talking Heads is really due to MTV. Remain in Light was 1 year before the launch of MTV in 1980, MTV launching in 1981, and Speaking in Tongues in 1983 is not quite a cautionary tale of industry innovation as it is changing with times. You can look at a lot of older alternative acts that have changed their style or direction over the years as musical styles have faded in and out of relevance, or you can look back at things that were just kind of a in-the-moment style, like wearing gym shorts over sweatpants. Ask my dad about it. I don't think that the Talking Heads ever really sold out to any one trend, but were more so adapting to the industry, moving towards live performances and visual styles that MTV capitalized on in their early days. Part of what changed was the dulling of the edge that was present on earlier Talking Heads projects, a favor for more cohesive yet nonsensical songs that were more widely available to a wider audience. You can look at the success of songs like Burning Down the House or This Must Be the Place, both wildly different sounding songs from different sides of Speaking in Tongues that have seen great success. Speaking in Tongues makes each track feel contained before moving on to the next track, often being a completely different thought. I would say that there isn't one consistent theme among all the songs, more so that the album is about not making sense at all. The common theme among the Talking Heads musical career.
Stop making sense.
Exactly. Speaking in Tongues follows this ideology very well and manages to keep a bouncy and groovy feel between all the tracks. Standout tracks for me are Moon Rocks and Making Flippy Floppy. Moon Rocks has this really alien atmosphere about it. It's kind of like you attended a prom on Mars and you got a ride from the Martian's parents and you really thought it was a good idea that you should try to make awkward small talk the whole way over with everyone in the UFO. It's got this really anxious rhythm. It's contrasted by the charismatic performance of lead singer David Byrne, and it's hard not to love. Making Flippy Floppy almost captures the feeling of like popping up your shirt collar for the first time and thinking you know all the rules. The song sounds as confused about itself as does the lyrical content. I would argue that maybe that's the point of the song, but Making Flippy Floppy is so infectious it's hard not to not want to sing along and contort your body in ways you thought were previously unimaginable. What are some standout tracks for you, in your opinion, Dash?
Well, I think I'm going to go with the singles here on this one. My favorites are Burning Down the House, Girlfriend is Better, and This Must Be the Place. Burning Down the House is such a catchy song. Everything about this track just pops out to me. If any of you have ever heard this song on the radio, you probably know what I'm talking about. From the instrumentation to David Byrne's vocals, this song is just an instant classic. Girlfriend is Better is also incredibly catchy, both rhythmically and melodically, with its sort of confusing, are you allowed to say that?
Let's skip over it. It's kind of got this, like, you know, we don't care energy about it.
Yeah, we don't care energy, which is reflected heavily in the lyrics. It's incredibly fun to listen to and sort of to just bounce along to. This Must Be the Place is probably my all-time favorite Talking Heads song. It has the silly Talking Heads vibe, but it conveys it without the nervousness that most other songs by them employ. Tino Weymouth's bass playing on this track is also very compelling as a bass player. It's just a very warm and positive sounding song overall.
I think for Speaking in Tongues, Talking Heads really earns their accolades, scoring a 90 out of 100 on No Alternative. For fans of New Wave, Speaking in Tongues is a great way to start exploring the 80s.
As co-host of No Alternative and a huge Talking Heads fan, I approve of this rating. We'll be back right after the break.
If you like action, romance,
Polly sister, if you're watching this,
and highbrow humor,
Surface is this? Floor. Minch did not legitimately put his head in the toilet.
there's only one place to turn.
No!
Tune in to new episodes of
Oh boy!
only on WTOP.
Look at the number of disasters in the U.S. Chances are every area will deal with some kind of emergency in the next decade. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
I had to eat a raw egg on Chris's dormitory floor.
I currently don't have any federal pending charges.
You know what you never did? You never walked to Walmart, Chris.
That's my co-host. This is for making the East Coast Pop-Tarts.
It's showtime, Chris. Come on.
I want to be on the air for that. I got a couple things to say.
No.
Spin the wheel. But you got censorship.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to...
And I was telling them, like, I'm never drinking Mountain Dew again after this.
Oh, what's up, fantabulous music lovers?
Welcome back to No Alternative, Oswego's voice for alternative music. For our last segment of the night, we are going to enter our selections for our music diary, songs that we've been listening to consistently. I'll start off with my first pick of the week, which is Carrie by the band Isis, named after the Egyptian goddess, for those who don't know. And for those of you who likely don't know what this band is, probably most of you, Isis are a post-metal band that took the genre to new levels. Their music reminds me a lot of the vibes at Oswego. Aaron Turner's screaming vocals on this track sound like the souls of the perished, while the instrumentation and the blasting riffs are frightful.
Alrighty, this is my turn for the music diary. A track that I've been listening to a lot recently has been She's Leaving You by MJ Lenderman. It gets straight to the point and it doesn't hold back any punches. It's like a 2024 album that I can find myself revisiting a lot lately. It's got this really interesting musical flair and creativity derived from pedantic garage jam sessions. This music really reflects that vibe. It's the type of music you'd see someone wearing like a pair of jeans that could stand on their own, or wearing a shirt from a national park they've never been to. It's trashy in all the right ways. But I think that wraps it up for what we got here on today's episode of No Alternative. It's looking like we're a little low on time. So I think we're just going to milk it and we're just going to stare at the camera like we've been eating lead paint. Okay, we got 30 seconds. Apparently, let's toss. Wow.
What is good, music lovers and television watchers? Welcome to No Alternative, Oswego's premier music review show. I am DJ Dash here, Oswego's busiest music nerd, and joining me for the first time as my co-host of this show, I have the wonderful DJ.
It's Nate Hand. I have nothing really planned. I guess I'm the invisible hand, but let's roll with it.
He is a very cool guy who listens to a wide range of different alternative music, and he's going to provide some really good insight into a lot of that music. So to start off tonight's show, let's do a quick rundown of some new albums that came out in the past couple of weeks.